Hey everybody, welcome back to the Build Show Network. I'm Steve Bazek, and you are in for a treat today. Yes, we are starting a new project, so we're going to have probably a year's worth of videos coming live from this project. So we're calling it the Vineyard Passive House. We're out here on Martha's Vineyard. The house that's going to be built here behind me is a certified passive house, and like any project, it starts with a really good foundation. So we got some exciting stuff happening here, but before we get into talking about the foundation, let me introduce a good partner here. Farley is the builder of the project. He's also the owner of the home. So we have kind of the three-legged stool here between the two of us, and his wife, Daryl, of course. She makes a lot of decisions. We won't exclude her. But we have the design build team here. We've been working on the house for a while, and you know, as anything with Passive House or anything that both Farley and I do, we like to scrutinize everything. So in this particular project, we talked about starting with the foundation. Well, we have your typical concrete footing, but that's where the typical foundation ends. We're using this product. You can see behind me, we have these stacks of material here. So these are called the Perfect Block. They come from Arizona. Farley sourced them out for a number of reasons. I'm going to let Farley talk about that. But they get trucked up here and then ferried out to the island, and then they get put in place. They're very similar to an ICF. It's a structural core that's reinforced with concrete. But tell us a little bit about the blocks, Farley.
Yeah, Steve. So these are what they refer to as an ICCF, insulated concrete composite form. So they're made with 87% recycled EPS, and then they get put into a slurry with concrete and a binding agent, and then put into a mold to create this block. The dimensions of the block are 12 inches tall, 48 inches wide, and 10 inches in depth. And they have these cores that you can see. They're 6-inch cores. Spaced 12 inches on center. And we source this block for a number of reasons. Being on an island, everything here gets trucked in. We have a concrete plant, but all of their raw material needs to be trucked in from off island. And by using these blocks, we're able to eliminate 70% of what we would normally need for concrete.
Yeah, so that's a huge number right there, right? You go from, you know, the 10-inch concrete wall down to using 30% of the concrete that you put into the traditional formwork. But I think you touched on something that's really interesting that a lot of us don't have to overcome in building. When I'm back on the mainland, that everything you do here, your commitment to build always has a strike against you in embodied energy, because everything has to get made somewhere else and be brought out here. Very few things. I mean, even your lumber, it's not cut on the island. It's not milled on the island and left here to be used. It's all brought out here. So your commitment to build from an environmental awareness is even more heightened than what we have to deal with in our struggles on the mainland.
Steve, I'd say that's exactly right. I mean, not only are we efficient house, passive house certification, but the other thing we look at is, all right, what's the carbon footprint that this house is going to be leaving just to build the house? And so taking a look at embodied energy is an important part of what we're doing.
And how all those materials get made, how they get put in. And, you know, to reiterate a couple of those points, I mean, everything you see behind me is almost 90% recycled material. So it already had a life. They took it, they ground it up. I actually grabbed the piece here that I can bring up here and show you. You can see there, it's EPS. This is nothing more than, you know, the coffee cup you drank out of this morning, right? It just gets reconstituted. It's got this kind of concrete-ish type binder there that holds it all together. But, you know, it's basically a chunk of insulation that wraps around the concrete that gets reinforced. And so the foundation gets its strength from the steel inside it and the core matrix that the blocks provide. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. And this is fire retardant?
Fire retardant, they actually refer to it as being fireproof.
Fireproof.
It's got a 4-hour fire rating, can resist up to 4,000 degrees. Another added benefit is that it's insect proof and rodent proof. So one of the issues that one of the concerns that I've had about using sort of a traditional ICF block is that it's used with a virgin EPS foam, so no recycled content. It's highly susceptible to insect damage. Even going to great lengths of protecting the wall once it's formed up, there's still a risk factor there. Termites are an issue here on the island. Insects, I would imagine, are an issue pretty much anywhere you go in the world. And so here we are coming up with a foundation that is using EPS foam, but 100% insect proof.
Right. And so basically, I think it's safe saying that this is kind of ICF block taken to the next level.
Yes.
Right. This is the Superman of ICF block, right? That it has all those resistance, but in terms of being that resistant proof material to fire, rodents, insects, and stuff, it has really good insulating quality because it's probably about 3.5 per inch.
Exactly. So we're not getting the traditional 5 per inch that you'd see on a traditional EPS foam block, but at 3.5, we're still getting an R value of about 35 from our foundation wall, standing on its own.
One of the other things that I love about it is that, and we talked about it in the design, is that because they're laid up in 1-foot increments, we're not limited to the typical 8-foot forms of the concrete guy or 10-foot forms. We literally can build the foundation wall in a 1-foot increment. We could do a 2-foot crawl space through a 12 or 14-foot basement wall. And it's just a matter of buying more blocks and laying them up. I mean, we're basically playing with Legos here.
Exactly. There's really no limitation to how tall you can go on using this block. In some instances, some people are using the block for the entire structure. So doing the foundation, first floor walls, second floor walls. In our case, I'm a carpenter by trade. This isn't my first choice of material to be working with, so we're going to use it as our foundation, and then from the foundation up, we'll use a traditional wood frame.
Move back to the wood frame. And this comes in different widths of blocks. So depending on how tall you want to make your wall, and if it's more of a retaining wall, whatever the case is, you have that variable in width to gain strength. The concrete core obviously gets bigger. The rebar schedule can get stronger. So there's a lot of ways to make this a stronger wall without necessarily increasing the size.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, this is cool stuff. And then they supply everything, right? I mean, we're looking here. These are kind of just your running bond bricks that just get laid up and stacked in a running bond. But I know somewhere we have some corner pieces and specialty pieces that kind of finish the system and make it complete. And maybe when we go down into the hole here, we can take a look at some of those things, and we'll talk about what you've learned on using this block. But right now, we're just going to use this as an introduction. So I'm going to jump back to the studio. I'm going to pull up some literature on this perfect block. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into it on this video and get a little bit better education. And then come back next week, and we'll go down in the hole, and we'll actually see this stuff getting put together. So I'll see you back at the studio. Thanks, Farley.
Thank you, Steve.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We're back here at the studio. Hopefully you had a good time out there. Farley's a great guy. This is a great project that we're kicking off here. It's been in the works for probably a couple of years, so it's nice to see that finally getting kicked off. Guess what? We got a friend here, Big Red, and we're going to dive in, and we're going to start talking about perfect block. So I printed out this one spec sheet here. It just gives you a quick overview of the block. you can see there, 48 inches, 10 inches wide, 12 inches. This is actually the asymmetrical block. We have the symmetrical block out there. So we have two 2-inch layers. But there's a lot of things that are pretty interesting about this block. So one, it's not called an ICF, it's called an ICCF. And that stands for Insulated Concrete Composite Forms. The reason it's called a composite form is that 87% of this block is recycled material. So this means that this EPS was slated for the landfill or for trash or whatever. These companies bring their waste EPS to the Perfect Block or Eco Building Systems Corp. And then they reconstitute that recycled EPS with a binder, and then they form these blocks and ship them out to builders like Farley who want to build with them. But there's a lot of cool things about the block. One, we just spoke of, 87% recycled, but it's what we call quake safe. Never heard that term before, but to an 8.0. So given the right reinforcement schedule in there, you can build a pretty solid building here. It's also rated for a 250 mile per hour wind, which means that's a pretty good hefty hurricane there that it can tolerate, again, with the right reinforcing schedule. So the cool thing about this block is, you know, you have the 3 cores, they're 12 inches on center. Ours called for number 4 bars every 24 inches, but you could certainly make this a stiffer wall by adding reinforcing to each of those courses, the vertical courses there. And the horizontal courses, we likewise had number 4 bars at every 24 inches, and we could increase those to get up to, you know, get those numbers working for us. But a couple other things. One, these are 100% pest free, meaning animals don't like to chew them. They don't want to live in them. They don't care about them. It is 100% mold free, because there's no organic material there to sustain mold growth. They are 100% termite free. So all of you living in those termite infested areas, guess what? We got a solution for you, the Perfect Block. A couple other things. We talked about the size. The weight of these blocks, you heard Farley say they're about 40 pounds, but depending on the size, they range from about 30 to 50 pounds. So they're kind of big enough where one person can handle them on their own, but 2 can do it really successfully and lay them up pretty quick. The block itself has a 4-hour fire rating when you pour the concrete in there. So that's about as stiff a fire rating as you'll ever need. It also, the blocks don't ignite. So you can't get them on fire. So if you're in one of those where you have forest fires and brush fires and all of that, those kinds of areas, the Perfect Block there might be a really good answer for that. There is 0 off-gassing. So these blocks, after they're made and sent out to the job site, they're pretty much inert. Nothing there. And there is 0 UV degradation. Right? So UV doesn't kill them. Now, one of the coolest things about this is that the block, by volume, takes up about 70% of the volume, which yields a requirement of about 30% concrete. So imagine that. Imagine being able to build a foundation wall with roughly a third, less than a third of the concrete required for a typical 10-inch foundation wall. And I get roughly, let's say, about an R21 across the wall here. So not a bad deal. I mean, they labeled it the Perfect Block, not me, but man, they are pretty darn close to solving the world's problems with one block. Let's take a look here. I also cut out a quick building section out of the set of drawings for us to take a quick look at. You can see here we have our 11 courses that go down. And those 11 courses, obviously those are 1 foot increments. So we get basically 11 courses, 11 feet. When you subtract the 14 inches in the mud sill, the floor joist, and the 8 inches here, we yield about a 9 foot, 5 inch basement ceiling height. So that's pretty darn good. Now, the beauty of that is we could have added another course or two, and that 9 foot 5 could have went to 10.5, 11.5, or we could have took a block or two out and dropped that 9.5 down to 8.5, 7.5, or you could do 3 or 4 courses and have a 3 foot, 4 foot crawl space. Remember, termite free, already insulated. Get down in the southeast there, where you have a bunch of termites, you're looking for an insulated layup. You know, down there they use concrete block. When you saw this in the video, it very much looks like just an oversized concrete block, lays up the same way. You don't have to mix the mortar, which means you don't need water on the site. So if you're in one of those remote sites, you don't have the requirement of having water. It's just the blocks with that DuPont adhesive sealant. And the reinforcing schedule is probably damn near the same as a reinforcing schedule for CMU block, right? So here we have that footer bar, and we alter those. Every other one goes in the opposite direction. Then we have the starter bar, goes down to the footing, and then those get tied together. Remember, our spec on that was 30 inches. And then we have our finish bar, which comes down and connects to the starter bar, and that gets lapped at 30 inches. So we have the 3 bars in that 11 foot height. These are all number 4 bars. All right. For those of you that don't understand reinforcing, number 4 bars, reinforcing bars are measured in an eighth. So number 4 bars, 4/8 are a 1/2 inch bar. And there you have it. One of the last things we'll talk about that I think is one of the coolest things about using this block, and was a big reason as to why we used it. Well, we're putting joist hangers and we're going to hang our floor joist inside that block. So what does that mean? It means the proximity of the floor to the finished grade is somewhere around 10 inches. So it's a lot tighter than that typical, 21, 24 inches that you see by the time you finish the foundation wall. You put the 14-inch floor joist, the subfloor, the 10 inches here, the 14 there, and subfloor. Next thing you know, you're at 24, 25 inches, and you have 3 or 4 steps down. Having that 10 inches, we can just come out here and do a nice granite landscape or patio or something and tie it right in there. So we're just that 1 step down, which was a huge part of the decision in using these blocks, in being able to sink that floor down inside that opening and get us closer to the grade down there. So that was a huge benefit. Other than that, that's my intro to the perfect block. We're going to come back next time. We're going to talk about, and we'll talk about that detail in detail. We'll go back out to the job site, and we'll look at the block a little closer. We'll learn some of the little tricks and tips that Farley used in starting to use that block, and some of the lessons that he learned in using that block. But until next time, if you haven't gone back and seen me and Big Red here in action in some of those previous videos, I suggest you go back and look at it. There's a lot of good content out there. I talk about everything from framing to windows to design intent. It's a really good mix. So there's some good stuff to be found there. My colleagues likewise, Brent, Wade, Jake, Matt, all doing a fabulous job putting up content. The build show here, you can go there, you can see real life work. This is stuff that's happening. I took you out to a job site. I'm shooting this video, the site video we shot 3 or 4 days ago. This isn't video that was, taken a year ago or archived or something like that. This is video that is happening right here, right now. And so go check out those videos. Go check out my buddies. Until next time, long live our buildings. And we'll see you again on the Build Show.